Captain America, the Winter Soldier, directed by the Russo brothers, starring Chris Evans, Sam L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, Robert Redford, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Frank Grillo, and Toby Jones. It is the film that single-handedly made me a massive MCU fan when I still wasn't, and also completely turned me around on Captain America as a character because of the brilliant way it handled him. The story takes place sometime after the Avengers. Captain America is working for S.H.I.E.L.D. on various missions, one of which takes him and Black Widow to a kidnapped S.H.I.E.L.D. ship off the coast of India. During the mission, it turns out that Widow has a secret objective to steal away some of the data for Nick Fury. Data which leads him to believe that there may be a mole in S.H.I.E.L.D. or something going wrong, someone actively working against him and perhaps trying to use for nefarious purposes the new project Inside, three massive helicarriers designed to monitor and take down potential threats before they even become threats. And so begins this spy thriller slash action story, which will also involve a mysterious assassin nicknamed Winter Soldier. So as I mentioned, this is the movie that really changed my mind, and it basically did so within the first 10 minutes. Seeing Captain America kick ass the way he does during the ship sequence made me go, wow, I didn't know he could be so badass. Suddenly he looks like a really competent superhero, but what's really crucial about him is the way his character is developed. Avengers really made him look like an asshole a lot of the time, but here he is much more likable and decent as a person. And what's really interesting to me as someone who also deals in storytelling about his character arc is that it's not too much of an arc, actually, compared to like Iron Man, who over the course of the movies goes from selfish asshole businessman to a selfless hero. Steve Rogers essentially doesn't change. He is a good, upstanding person from minute one, deeply rooted in his personal principles. So what changes instead is his environment. The institutions and ideals that he chooses to place his faith in begin to fail around him and show him that the world overall is much more dirty and dishonest than it would seem, which then slowly begins to push him towards placing his faith in individuals, in people, rather than the institutions, which is quite an elegant idea for a character arc, for a character named Captain America. So again, he doesn't change all that much, but the world around him does. Other than the character itself, I think the plot of the film is very well written and directed. It keeps the audience guessing as to what's really going on, and I think it manages to handle its surprises quite brilliantly. The action is absolutely top notch. I mean, you have several sequences which could reasonably be argued as one of the most impressive, at least in technical terms, in the entire MCU. There's very little green screens and CGI. The fights are mostly, there's mostly hand-to-hand combat, which means there are actual people, actors or stuntsmen, doing those things that we're seeing. So what we see is real. So when you look at things like the Lemurian star sequence, Nick Fury's car chase, elevator scene, finally the fight between Captain and Winter Soldier on the streets of DC with the famous knife flip scene. I mean, the choreography, the hand-to-hand combat and the way it's shot is fantastic. There's just no question about it. I also really like how the movie quietly develops its side characters. Nick Fury, Black Widow, Falcon. Even though they may not have so much screen time, they feel like much more realized characters than they would in the previous films they appeared in. The one thing that may appear missing is the traditional brand of Marvel humor, which is fairly reduced here. But to me, that's actually not a flaw. That's quite a contrary. I think it fits the darker and more adult themes of the film. I think it would have been weird to have the same style of the Iron Man jokes while making also a commentary on surveillance, personal freedoms, and security through fear, which all of those themes to this day remain very relevant. Overall, I think I still think it's my favorite Marvel movie to date. I cherish it even more than Infinity War or Endgame, not just for how well it's made on pretty much all levels, but perhaps more importantly, because of how much it was able to influence my opinion on its character, but also by extension on the whole cinematic universe as a whole.